I interviewed a CBP commissioner when I was writing about this for Politico, who told me on the record, we accidentally hired cartel members.
Federal authorities launched a major operation in New Mexico, carrying out the largest coordinated immigration enforcement effort in the state's history. At the same time, they disrupted a dangerous network linked to a major international crime organization that had been using the same trafficking routes. What investigators uncovered revealed a connection that few had anticipated. Although a well-known cartel leader remains in custody, parts of the organization continued operating in the region. After years of investigation in New Mexico, officials finally made a major breakthrough. Before we continue into this operation, let's look back at the policy changes that set the stage for it. Following the events of 9/11, Immigration and Customs Enforcement evolved from a small administrative entity into one of the most heavily funded enforcement agencies in the United States, surpassing combined budgets of the FBI, ATF, Secret Service, DEA, and U.S. Marshals. With roughly $50 billion in annual funding, comparable to the U.S. Marine Corps, ICE became the most financially supported domestic enforcement agency in American history.
How much is that?
About $50 billion a year.
Okay.
The July 4th reconciliation bill allocated an additional $30 billion specifically for ICE initiatives. This funding led to major growth in detention capacity, officer hiring, and specialized enforcement units. ICE's restructuring under the Department of Homeland Security blended personnel from previous immigration and customs agencies, creating two primary divisions with expanded missions.
ICE was a creation alongside as part of the Department of Homeland Security right after 9/11.
Homeland Security Investigations serves as the investigative division focusing on cases such as drug smuggling, human trafficking, financial crimes, cultural property theft, and sensitive national security-related matters.
HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, that focuses on drug smugglers, human traffickers, antique smuggling, customs smuggling, nuclear nonproliferation. They do really cool, really complex national security.
Operational differences between ICE's investigative wing and its enforcement wing have long created internal tension, with separate offices in many major cities due to contrasting work cultures. With increased funding, these agencies gained significant independence and resources, surpassing many other federal departments. Funding in this period supported hiring 10,000 new ICE personnel and 3,000 Customs and Border Protection officers, along with major investments in detention sites, border infrastructure, and state-level holding programs. During earlier government expansions in the late 2000s, the number of Border Patrol agents doubled from 9,000 to 18,000. However, rapid hiring created oversight challenges, leading to documented cases of misconduct and policy failures. Between 2005 and 2012, more than 2,100 personnel were arrested for various wrongdoing, averaging approximately one per day during peak years, before improving in later years. Officials acknowledged that fast-track hiring created screening challenges in some cases, emphasizing the importance of thorough vetting and training. This period became a key lesson in federal hiring standards, accountability, and oversight within U.S. border security agencies. Rapid hiring placed pressure on recruitment standards, with many applicants accepted who previously might not have qualified under normal conditions. Supervisory ratios shifted from a planned 5-to-1 officer-to-supervisor structure to approximately 11-to-1, creating challenges in oversight as many new officers entered the field. By the end of the expansion period, more than half of personnel reportedly had under 2 years of experience, and projections suggested a similar outcome for incoming ICE personnel if hiring continued at the same pace. Recruitment messaging, once centered on national security and counter-terror efforts, increasingly highlighted field-level enforcement imagery. Official social media channels at times used dramatic visuals to promote operations, contributing to public discussion about tone and outreach. In 2025, New Mexico became a key focus due to its border proximity and its role as a transit route for illegal narcotics activity. The state is estimated to have roughly 46,000 undocumented residents, and its agriculture and dairy industries depend heavily on labor, making them sensitive to enforcement actions. On October 29th, Representative Mariana Anaya introduced a website to anonymously share sightings of immigration activity in several communities. Civil rights organizations reported a noticeable rise in arrests compared to 2024 and held Know Your Rights workshops that saw large increases in attendance. In late January, mobile enforcement patrols near Navajo Nation areas resulted in 15 U.S. citizens being temporarily detained and questioned before release after verification through tribal identification. The incident drew attention to the importance of appropriate identification procedures during field encounters. In response to community concerns, Navajo Nation launched the Operation Rainbow Bridge tipline to collect reports regarding potential profiling and to help ensure proper identification protocols were followed. On February 25, a targeted enforcement action in Santa Fe resulted in one arrest of an individual with a criminal record. That same week, roughly 85 federal immigration cases were filed statewide. Videos circulating online showing unmarked vehicles in Santa Fe prompted community groups to issue informational alerts. From March 1 to March 8, multi-agency operations, including participation by federal investigative and enforcement partners, took place across Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and Roswell, focusing on individuals with prior removal orders and criminal backgrounds. A total of 48 arrests were made, including individuals with prior convictions and those with final removal orders. Civil rights advocates raised concerns about access to legal representation and family notification when individuals were transferred to facilities out of state. Reports also noted logistical challenges for attorneys attempting to locate clients after relocations, emphasizing the importance of clear due process protocols during transfers. In early June 2025, federal agents executed a workplace enforcement action at a dairy operation near Lovington, New Mexico. The operation involved early morning entry with search warrants issued for unauthorized labor. 11 individuals were detained, most with prior immigration-related cases, and several faced federal charges involving document-related violations. Local community organizations held press events expressing concerns about the impact on families and local businesses. Operations at the facility paused temporarily, and advocacy groups estimated financial losses exceeding $50,000. One detainee required medical attention during transport, drawing further attention to health and safety procedures. Industry reports noted a temporary decline in dairy output in the county following the incident. Later in June, enforcement actions in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho targeted fraudulent deliverer-driver operations tied to scam reports, using plainclothes personnel and working dogs. Several arrests occurred, including a widely shared incident involving an individual named Molina Pina. Officials reported that a June enforcement action involved an individual who resisted commands and was viewed as presenting an immediate safety concern. Some witnesses, however, expressed concerns that Latino workers in parking lots were disproportionately impacted. 8 individuals were detained, including 5 for immigration-related issues and 3 for prior low-level offenses such as impaired driving cases. Some reports suggested enforcement tips may have come from competing delivery services. Community response included a temporary pullback by Latino gig economy workers from major store parking areas, causing disruptions to delivery services across the metro region in July and August 2025. Enhanced statewide operations, supported by new federal funding, included home visits, street-level stops, and restaurant area checks in several cities, including Silver City. Dozens were arrested through programs like Operation Safe Neighborhoods, which prioritized individuals with pending criminal histories or prior removal cases. Detention facilities in multiple counties operated above recommended capacity, with advocacy groups citing concerns about infrastructure strain, medical care access, and living conditions. Increased enforcement resulted in several detentions in Silver City, including individuals with open criminal-related warrants. One restaurant experienced a decline in customer traffic after an enforcement visit, reporting about a 40% drop in revenue in the weeks that followed. By late summer, capacity challenges intensified at certain detention facilities, leading to documented sanitation and medical care pressures. In September, coordination between federal immigration authorities and local probation offices in Albuquerque and Las Cruces led to more than 15 arrests, including individuals with outstanding warrants for failure to appear and drug-related cases. State officials debated whether this cooperation aligned with New Mexico's privacy policies, with some leaders voicing concerns about information sharing practices. A Supreme Court ruling permitted expanded mobile patrol and identification check authority, prompting state leaders to warn about potential civil rights implications. In October, a focused fugitive operation in Las Cruces led to one arrest involving an individual with serious criminal convictions, with expedited immigration proceedings initiated. From late October through early November, no major enforcement activity was confirmed despite heightened community vigilance during seasonal cultural celebrations. Reports surfaced of unmarked vehicles in several cities, leading to community caution, event cancellations, and rights awareness messaging from advocacy groups. Online discussion reflected mixed emotions ranging from concern to calls for calm and legal education during the holiday period. Texas was repeatedly cited as a neighboring state where active operations created additional anxiety among New Mexico residents. Herring, a long land border with Mexico, became a major hub of immigration enforcement activity in 2025, following similar patterns seen in New Mexico, including workplace visits, targeted arrests, and highway patrol efforts. More than 10,000 arrests were recorded statewide through June 2025, with cooperation agreements in some counties contributing to the higher numbers. Detention facilities in El Paso and Houston reported operating at elevated capacity, with concerns similar to those raised in New Mexico regarding sanitation and medical care strain. On January 26, 2025, a coordinated multi-agency effort across several North Texas cities resulted in 84 arrests tied to immigration violations and other legal issues. Further operations in Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Brownsville, and McAllen led to additional arrests, including 12 individuals detained in Austin. Some local jurisdictions reported not receiving advance notice of federal actions, and advocates noted both targeted and collateral detentions. Approximately 50 individuals were processed and removed from the U.S. by February. In late March 2025, a law enforcement action in Hays County near Austin focused on allegations of gang-related activity connected to a gathering at a rented home. Federal and local agencies executed a warrant, detaining 47 individuals, most of whom were Venezuelan nationals. Months later, no public confirmation of gang connections had been released, and filings indicated that many detainees had no verified criminal involvement. Families reported temporary separations, including one case involving a parent. Civil rights groups raised transparency concerns and filed legal challenges, emphasizing the importance of due process safeguards and clear public reporting standards when serious allegations are made. During May 4 to 10, 2025, a multi-agency public safety initiative in the Houston region involved HSI, CBP, DEA, ATF, FBI, U.S. Marshals, and Texas DPS. The effort focused on individuals with final removal orders and criminal backgrounds through neighborhood and residence checks. According to official releases, 422 arrests took place, including 296 individuals with prior convictions such as serious assault and drug trafficking offenses. ICE also reported more than 500 removals, emphasizing taxpayer savings on detention costs. Following the operation, construction and hospitality industries noted temporary workforce shortages. In early June, enforcement teams conducted workplace visits at construction sites in Brownsville and South Padre Island, using warrants tied to unauthorized labor and labor law concerns. 25 individuals from Mexico and Honduras were detained pending immigration proceedings. Officials emphasized the importance of protecting lawful employment practices, while local contractors reported noticeable staffing gaps following the action. On June 9, 2025, additional worksite enforcement occurred at 2 Rio Grande Valley businesses focused on visa fraud allegations and unauthorized employment, leading to 12 arrests. ICE highlighted worker protection goals along with employment verification enforcement. On October 29, 2025, officers conducted street-level enforcement outside a Home Depot in the Houston-Pasadena area where day laborists gather for work. A widely shared video showed workers dispersing as agents approached. Roughly 120 individuals were taken into custody for immigration processing, and community reactions included peaceful protests citing economic concerns among local workers. Florida became a leading state for immigration cooperation in 2025, supported by extensive partnerships between state authorities and federal agencies. A significant number of 287G agreements enabled local law enforcement to assist with immigration screening. Arrest totals exceeded 10,000 by mid-year, compared to 3,496 in 2024. Detention centers, including facilities in Collier and Clay counties, operated above recommended capacity levels. Federal funding expanded state enforcement capabilities, while advocacy groups raised concerns about potential profiling and a substantial rise in arrests involving individuals without criminal convictions. From April 24 to 26, 2025, Operation Tidal Wave represented a coordinated statewide action in Florida with participation from DHS, CBP, state troopers, the National Guard, wildlife officers, and 287G partners. Officials reported the operation focused on individuals with active warrants and repeat offenses. More than 120 arrests took place in 1 week, with over half involving individuals with serious criminal convictions. More than 1,100 people were processed for removal, and state officials described the initiative as a model for future enforcement. Sectors such as construction and agriculture experienced short-term labor challenges in the aftermath. On May 29, 2025, enforcement teams visited construction sites connected to student housing projects near Florida State University, leading to over 100 arrests from multiple countries. Authorities noted employee verification investigations and emphasized workplace safety and labor rights considerations. Several agencies participated, and federal officials reviewed employer practices after reports of chaotic scenes during the action. By June 2025, Florida conducted more workplace actions than any other state, with data indicating a substantial increase in detentions focused on immigration status violations rather than solely criminal cases. Hundreds were detained, including 255 individuals during a 9-day operation tied to human trafficking investigations. Some counties reported detention capacity challenges as the volume of immigration holds increased. From September 22 to 26, 2025, a coordinated sweep across Central Florida targeted individuals with active warrants and final removal orders. More than 400 arrests occurred, including cases tied to impaired driving. Nearly 530 removals followed. In October, authorities disrupted a multi-county theft group involving individuals posing as landscapers, recovering stolen property and making several arrests. In another action, more than 500 individuals were safely brought out of a human smuggling situation, and associated arrests were made. One individual faced charges after an object was thrown at an ICE vehicle, and reports circulated of increased processing activity in South Florida offices. Through late October and early November, some Florida counties documented a sharp rise in immigration detainers, especially in rural areas with fewer legal aid resources. Certain county sheriffs received federal reimbursement for cooperation, while transfers to federal custody continued to climb. Former cartel leader Joaquin Guzman Loera historically relied on armed networks to protect illicit operations across Mexico and beyond. Though he remains incarcerated, law enforcement agencies continue to monitor related activity. His sons, often referenced in reports regarding emerging cartel leadership, have been connected to continuing trafficking concerns, including along New Mexico routes. One key associate, Nestor Isidro Perez Salas, known as El Nini, served as a security coordinator and has been linked to serious crimes in Mexico. He was arrested in Mexico in 2023 and extradited to the U.S. in May 2024, where he faces federal charges including drug and weapons offenses. Authorities have connected him to trafficking routes through New Mexico border regions, including a 2023 seizure of 1,214 pounds of fentanyl-laced narcotics traced directly to Chapitos controlled couriers. Authorities described the corridor as one of the most strategically exploited smuggling pipelines in the Southwest. Federal task forces in late 2025 expanded surveillance and undercover operations across remote ranching corridors, noting cartel scouts using encrypted radios, off-road vehicles, and long-range optics to monitor border patrol patterns. Agents also documented increased use of stash houses disguised as agricultural labor camps, often staffed by traffickers posing as seasonal workers. A coordinated December enforcement sweep led to 84 federal indictments, the dismantling of 3 interstate transport cells, and the seizure of $11.2 million in U.S. currency along with precursor chemicals intended for clandestine labs. Officials emphasized that cartel tactics continue to evolve, blending traditional smuggling with cyber-facilitated recruitment, drone-based surveillance, and cryptocurrency laundering schemes. Homeland Security analysts warned that rural border counties remain at heightened risk, citing limited local law enforcement resources, sprawling infrastructure gaps, and cartel efforts to exploit so-called silent corridors where federal presence is thin. Community leaders urged sustained federal support to counter cartel infiltration, protect vulnerable migrants, and prevent violent spillover into civilian communities as 2026 approaches. A major federal investigation documented over a ton of illegal substances seized in Las Cruces, connected to a cross-border distribution network. U.S. operations traced network members to secure locations in Albuquerque used for coordination, storage, and transportation planning across the Southwest. Jorge Ivan Gastelum-Avila, known as El Cholo Ivan, served as a personal security lead for a high-profile international figure from 2009 to 2016. He supervised enforcement groups and supported international movements during secure hideouts in 2015 to 2016. He was detained in Mexico in January 2016 and later transferred to the U.S. in April 2025, facing federal charges. His organization was linked to underground routes near the New Mexico border and asset seizures from joint FBI and local operations in 2015. Federal reports show this network previously engaged in dangerous confrontations with U.S. agents during enforcement missions in southern New Mexico. Jose Rodrigo Arrieta Gamboa, known as El Chino Antrax, led a security group associated with high-risk international operations. He managed digital intimidation campaigns and executed high-priority assignments. He was detained in San Diego in 2013, transferred in 2015, served a sentence, released in 2020 and detained again in 2022. His organization worked in New Mexico and Texas border areas, and a 2014 seizure in Deming, NM was tied to his logistics network. These groups operated safe locations in Albuquerque and Las Cruces, building infrastructure later utilized by newer leadership factions. Moises Barnabas Barroza Orozco, known as El Moises, led another enforcement group supporting leadership transitions after 2017. He was detained in Mexico in May 2025 and is expected to face extradition. He has been linked to rural facilities near the New Mexico-Chihuahua region. Rivalries between groups led to regional confrontations, including a 2023 incident in Roswell. Another figure, Fausto El Chapo Fausto Mesa Flores, became a rival operator claiming influence over territories and distribution sectors. He was placed on the FBI's most wanted list in February 2025 with a reward notice. Investigators connected him to 2024 shipment activity through New Mexico, and reports noted confrontations in Luna County tied to territorial disputes. New Mexico has been identified as a key corridor in national interdiction efforts, with federal authorities estimating significant nationwide impacts. The region has played a role in both logistics and concealed transport attempts, using major highways such as I-40 and I-25 as primary routes. Historic reports describe the state's use for unlawful crossings, temporary housing, and confrontations during earlier conflicts between competing organizations. Newer factions inherited these structures, heightening regional tension after the detention of major figures near El Paso in 2024. U.S. enforcement priorities shifted after 2019 to focus on emerging leadership groups, leading to increased activity in New Mexico, including a reported rise in arrests in 2025 during intensified federal actions. Communities such as Las Cruces and Sunland Park expressed concerns over potential retaliation following major detentions. Nationwide, federal immigration operations recorded over 500,000 detentions in fiscal year 2025, most relating to documentation-based violations rather than criminal allegations. Enforcement actions included workplace sweeps and field operations, prompting concerns in communities where undocumented residents are part of the labor force. New Mexico's estimated 46,000 undocumented residents and agricultural sector experienced heightened anxiety, with dairy and farm industries reporting disruptions. Local and state advocacy efforts responded through proposed legislation such as HB 9 and SB 250, aimed at limiting state-level data sharing without proper legal review. Although temporarily stalled, these efforts were revived later in the legislative session. New Mexico's Attorney General expressed concern regarding federal authority expansion, citing risks of profiling and constitutional challenges. Online discussions reflected public tension, including criticism of enforcement and debates around national immigration policies. Community organizations emphasized rights awareness, encouraging residents to know legal protections such as requiring judicial warrants for entry, documenting interactions, remaining silent when needed, and seeking legal counsel. Community reporting tools, anonymous mapping platforms, and legal hotlines saw increased use, while rights education workshops nearly tripled since 2024. Disability rights advocates highlighted additional challenges for vulnerable individuals during enforcement interactions. Advocacy groups documented detention facility overcrowding, infrastructure issues, and access to legal counsel concerns. Lawsuits led to some releases and ongoing calls for oversight. The Attorney General continued pursuing legislative protections while urging accountability for enforcement operations. Thanks for watching.